This is Tabula Rasa reviewing another comic. We are grading off of these categories. If I like it, it gets a star. If I really like it, it gets a star plus. It's going to be out of 10, 5 being I will recommend it to other people, and anything above 5 means I really like it, and anything below 5, well, you get the idea. Today's review is an interesting one. It is Soulless, Volume 1, a manga published by Yen Press, written and art by Gail Carriger, according to Comixology, who are not a sponsor. This is interesting because this is a manga, but the author is clearly not Japanese, and with Yen Press, who has published titles such as A Certain Magical Index, Is It Wrong to Flirt in a Dungeon, and Carol and Tuesday, among many others, well, what can I say? It piqued my interest. Before we move on to the actual review, if you do like this sort of thing, do the YouTube thing, and let's be off. The summary is as follows. The life of a spinster in Victorian London isn't an easy one on the best of days, but such a life becomes infinitely more complicated when said spinster is quote-unquote soulless, a preternatural bridging the gap between the natural and supernatural worlds. Miss Alexia Tarabotti has this unique distinction, and when she is assailed at a formal gathering by a rove vampire, an encounter that results in the death of the half-starved creature, her circumstances become exponentially more complicated. Indeed. Now caught in an intrigue with life or death stakes, Alexia must rely on her talents to outmatch the forces conspiring against her. But it may be the man who has caught her eye, Lord Connell Mackin, and their budding flirtation that truly drives her to her wits' end. I have a problem with the summary, but let's save that for later. So, black and white and color. In a typical manga fashion, it is mostly in black and white, like 95% of it, black and white. The few color pages don't detract from it. After all, this is typical for manga. And as such, there are a few times in which the backgrounds aren't present, but considering the detail of the character drawings, it actually helps focus on the characters, which are drawn and inked to a very high standard, so it gets a star. It works, it's practical, and it doesn't, however, push any envelopes, but then again, does every, piece of manga need to? The answer is no, it does not. Panels and expression. The panels are rather simple. A lot of boxes, a lot of squares, a bit of diagonals, but they are done competently. If anything, it is a very basic of what would be expected from manga. Maybe a little bit more if it was compared to American comics. A little play here and there would be nice, but that would just be showing off my personal preferences. The action scenes were done well, though, again, they were pretty simple. So overall, it works. So it gets a star. The foundations are solid, so, not much to critique about, but again, not a whole lot to praise either. Character. Here we have the characters. This story focuses on Alexia Tarabotti. We don't know much at the beginning, but we do know that she is regularly involved in the supernatural, and there are a wide variety of character types that do interact well with her. A lot of back and forth between characters, all of them being well drawn, so this gets a star. A lot of the characters that you get a back and forth with is, Lord Cornwall, Mackin, and Alexia and a mother sometimes, Alexia and Lord Al-Keldama, who is a vampire. But if you're worried, oh no, this is going to be like Twilight, worry not. This is not like Twilight. And if you were hoping that this was like Twilight, you got your vampires and werewolves, so kind of, but definitely not Twilight. Theme and execution. This is a mystery slash crime genre comic, and there's also romance in there as well. And the setting in this setting in Victorian era England makes it a little difficult to put all of those together, especially for comics. You usually get something like mostly crime with the femme fatale, or just like, oh, save your loved one and that kind of stuff. So it doesn't play a big role in this one, or usually in those, not this one, usually in these types of stories. This one plays it almost 50-50-ish. You get your crime stuff, then you get your romance stuff, and then you get your mystery stuff, and then you get your romance stuff. I don't know if it meshed well, but it was certainly interesting enough. So, but then again, part of the execution is that, so I would have to give it half a star. Plot and execution. The mystery plot is there. The bones are there, and the twist, however obvious it may be, was entertaining. It wasn't deep. And then the romance plot, well, considering that what happens at the end of volume 1, it feels a little rushed, though one may say that 232 pages worth of material isn't rushed, but for me, it felt rushed, so I'm gonna give it a star. Was it executed properly? Yeah, I guess. Was anything to rave home about? That depends on who's reading it, don't it? But for me, not really. So, overall, this gets 4.5 stars. So, not quite my 5-star recommendation thing, but it certainly is recommendable. It is even more impressive that this was made by a non-Japanese. That doesn't happen too often, so Gail Carriger should feel proud of this accomplishment. Although the genre is all put together makes it feel a little jumbled. I mean, we could stick with the paranormal mystery angle, or we could have went with the paranormal romance angle. But putting them together like this, it kind of feels like you're jumping from one genre to the other and back, and not so much that it's tied together well. Um, that being said, uh, it was interesting to see that, at least according to Comixology, Gail Carriger is the author and the artist. 232 pages of manga is certainly um, a lot, especially. So it made me wonder, and the pictures were good. So it's like, hey, let's check out what else she's done, right? And I looked into that, and let's just say, in researching the author, her wheelhouse is writing these type of paranormal stories, right? Nothing really showed that she did any sort of art or illustration. So I don't know for sure if she did. A simple portfolio would definitely tell the difference, uh, or provide evidence. Um, that being said, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But the summary, it's a shit summary. I mean, if you have to exposit during the summary, well, it's a shit summary. How about this? Miss Alexia Terabody is getting up on her years to be a bride, the one thing Victorian ladies must avoid. Rumors of her being a spinster is endless, and her mother is certainly upset. But who has time to be a bride when there are vampires, werewolves, and monsters? Oh my! After an attack by a rogue vampire at a party, things get only more difficult, mysterious, and complicated for Alexia. Powerful forces are at play in London. What will she do? See, it's short, it doesn't give away the plot, and hopefully it intrigues you. Now, let's be honest here. I only picked this because it was on Comixology's Unlimited. Otherwise, I may not have bothered. It is certainly a competent manga, and if you do have a bit of time and enjoy the genre of monsters, mystery, and romance, you'll probably enjoy this too. Though it is somewhat bothersome about Gail Carriger, in that because she has written stories, which is fine, um, I don't know who actually. She writes stories. She's a writer, right? It's not uncommon to have writers also be illustrators. It does happen. There's nothing, however, about Gail Carriger that indicates that she is into the manga style of illustration, much less illustration in general. So it kind of bothers me that, this seems like someone else drew the pictures for her, which again, it's fine. It happens. No worries. But the fact that she's getting credit for the art here and knowing how much work it takes to be, an artist, it does bother me. So, might be worth noting. Hopefully, someone someday might show me. It's like, oh, hey, here's Gail Carriger's, art portfolio that you can see. If therefore, she's not a total fraud on this. I mean, you shouldn't really take credit for other people's work. I mean, maybe the person got paid pretty well. I don't know. Used it to get their chops better, but or writing or their drawing chops better. But it does bother me that it feels right, and this is just a feeling. There's no real hard evidence. It just feels like she didn't actually draw this manga. Story's competent enough, but you know, you should give people the credit that is due to them. So if someone else drew or illustrated for you, you give them credit. Same thing for this manga. I kind of want to know who actually drew it, unless it's something I missed in the pages. If not, feel free to let me know. And if I'm mistaken, then I'm mistaken. But hey, 4.5 stars, pretty decent manga. There we go. So if you did like this sort of content, feel free to like, subscribe, do the YouTube thing. I hope you are enjoying your day or night. Ciao.